Hello, and welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I'm Eric Murphy. I think I should bring in my co-host. Let's jump right in there first. Hey, Elliot, how's it going?
Hi, what's up, brother? How are you?
Doing well. I really need to get us little name tags that can come up when we introduce ourselves.
I have a physical name tag here somewhere. I could just put that on. I don't know if that really does what you're looking for.
No, I want to get something official. It's a secular rarity. When I say so, hey everybody, this is my host, Secular Rarity. Hey. Oh, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I always love hosting with you, and you had a topic that you wanted to talk about, and I thought that we can dive into it and get into the meat of things. But first, before we do, how's everything going? What's new? What's going on?
Man, a bunch of stuff. The first thing though that I do want to talk about, because it's important to me and maybe only me, but it's very cold right now in Nashville, and I mean cold. Because apparently it's supposed to be somewhere around the teens Fahrenheit just the next couple of days. And if anybody out there was asking themselves, walking around in their daily lives saying, gosh, I wonder what temperature range SR prefers, it is higher than the 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. So if anybody out there has anything that they can offer, just heat in general, blankets, warm soup. Hit me up.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm good.
I definitely don't think about that kind of cold when I think about Tennessee. So for sure.
It's this wild thing where, and this has always been the case, my whole life. There's just 1 or 2 weeks out of the winter where it's just like, man, okay, we're going to feel it this week, and we get, whopping amounts of snow, sometimes accumulating up to 3, maybe 4 full inches. So it's rough. It's a difficult time for us. We barely make it with our one snowplow.
Well, so that's what is interesting is that, having the infrastructure for it is exactly the biggest piece. It can be critical. An inch of snow, but if your city is not ready for it, it can be devastating. When I lived in Texas, that big freeze, that big cold snap, people were dying.
Literally.
Meanwhile, over here in Portland, our nearby big mountain, Mount Hood, got its first 5 feet by the end of November of snow.
I don't understand what that's like.
Right? Yeah.
That concept doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, but okay. Digression here for sure. But something that I learned about being in Portland is that even though we have the technology, Portland won't salt and do the snow service on the streets, or at least won't salt the roads. Which means that when it snows over here in Portland, the whole city kind of shuts down. Yeah.
Is there some particular reason why they won't salt it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Messes up the asphalt? I mean,
no. So, number one, we need to take into account that when it snows in Portland, it's only snowy for about a week, right? So it's not like a whole season. But the big river that goes straight through the center of the city is the Willamette. And the Willamette is a freshwater river.
Sure. So all the runoff could really damage.
It'll kill all the fishes.
Yeah.
And so you talk to any locals out here and you say, oh my gosh, I can't, we don't salt the roads. And they all go, oh yeah, the fishes. So as a city, collectively, Portland went, we're going to save the fishes. And when it snows, we're just going to stay home for a week. And everybody's just kind of cool with it.
That's interesting. I got to be honest, I do kind of dig that. And just real quick before anybody out there starts, to type this, because I can see y'all getting ready. Fishes actually is proper there, because it's fish is when you are talking about multiple fish of multiple species. So Eric was correct there. Just I knew somebody was about. I knew
Oh
somebody
my
was about
God.
to be like, "Oh, the plural of fish is
Is fish.
and it's like, well, it is as long as you're talking about like 10 goldfish. It's like,
You know,
yeah, you've got a bunch of fish.
that
But
is
if you have
something
one fish, one tuna, and one halibut, actually, you have 3 fishes.
that is one thing that I love about this community, is that I feel like we have definitely cultivated all of the
Pedantry.
really, really, really pedantic people. Yeah, for sure.
There was one time.
Oh, before
And he.
I,
Oh, go ahead, please.
I want to let me put the phone number out there. That way we can get some callers in the queue, because we have a call screener and we're ready to take your calls. This is a call-in show. If you want to talk about what you believe and why, or want to hop in on the topic at hand, we are going to get into that in just a minute. So here's the phone number in case you were wondering: 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Again, 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Okay. What were you saying?
Just that a friend and I once did discuss for about 20 minutes the definition of pedantic, and whether that was the way that people were actually using it in common language. And yeah, so.
And is it?
That's what I do on a Friday night at 9 p.m.
That's,
Honestly,
what
Eric,
conclusion did you come to?
You know what? I don't even fucking know. I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, because whatever position we came to, probably like 10 minutes later, we were arguing about something else that had no value as well. But because that's just that's
the nature of friends.
And it's the thrill of the hunt, right? It's not it's about the journey, not the destination, you guys. Argue more with your friends about really stupid things that are fun and silly, and yeah, it's a great time. Absolutely. But we do have topics that are more than that. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, I was thinking about titling the episode "Unforgivable," and it's a conversation about crossing the line and what we owe each other. And you had an example that you wanted to talk about from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, one of the biggest organizations in the atheist sphere. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. And so I sent you, you were gracious enough to not instantly block me with the massive amount of info I sent you just last night. And I'm going to, try to present this pretty much the same way that I did with you, and pretty neutrally at first. I think most people probably that are hanging here with us have some familiarity with the Freedom from Religion Foundation in general, and probably even this most recent thing as well. And basically what happened is in, I want to say, the end of December, I think it was like right before Christmas or like right on Christmas, the Freedom from Religion Foundation posted...
Wait, this last Christmas?
Yeah, like literally just
a few weeks ago.
Yeah, like not very long ago.
Okay.
Yeah. This is, within a month time span. So they posted an article on their platform that was written by Jerry Coyne, and it was a response to an article that another contributor of theirs had posted previously. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that the first article was posted a few months prior, as well as the fact that that individual is actually on staff with FFRF, I do believe, whereas Jerry Coyne was on an honorary board, is the title he was at.
Yeah, and there are a good number of people on the honorary board of most big organizations, right? You look for the famous people to try and put them on so that they can add some prestige 100%. Or clout. Yeah. So
it's how you get donations.
Yeah. And I have no, but like, I'm sure Neil deGrasse Tyson is an honorary member of every board you can possibly imagine that's science related.
Yeah. At least a half dozen, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Guaranteed, right? That being said, this article was posted by FFRF, by Jerry Coyne, and it received a lot of pushback and responses from the community. And then they took that article down.
Okay.
When they took that article down, Jerry Coyne, Steven Pinker, Richard Dawkins all made a public statement that they were resigning from the board. I believe, and I'm not 100% positive on this, just an update on this. I believe FFRF has completely disbanded the honorary board now. I'm not positive on that, so definitely all in the comments and stuff, if somebody's more familiar,
Okay.
let us know.
So what the hell article would cause all these board members to quit?
Yeah. So the original article, and I'm gonna just pull it up on my end to refresh myself a little. So the original article that was posted was by an individual named Kat Grant, and they titled it "What is a Woman?" Something I think a lot of people would, in our space, would know that this is a conversation that has come up in many ways, right?
Yeah.
I think, and I, definitely I suggest everybody go out and read the article. Well, hang on. I just want to pause real quick to say this. I feel like I've presented the situation fairly neutrally thus far. And there's a lot of articles out there, and there's a lot of videos. There's a great one by a channel called Transpositions. I think they did a really good job with that. But I just wanted to officially state for everybody, like, this is the point. Like, I'm going to stop being completely neutral. I'm going to start putting in my opinions and biases and so forth. Okay. Anywho, Kat's article was, I think, a really good breakdown and understanding about how throughout history, throughout culture, right, the understanding of what is a man, what is a woman, has always been a little fluid, right? It doesn't mean that there aren't some big categories that we recognize or some major criteria that are often utilized, but I think Kat did a pretty good job of bringing in a lot of information that says, hey, yeah, actually, this is kind of a little squishy, and that's okay. Like, it's always been like that. And really, as long as you're not going out of your way to be an asshole on any side of this, it's going to work out okay, Okay. Jerry Coyne's article was very much pushing back against that, very much focused on the biological aspect.
Yeah, the title alone of this response article is inflammatory, right? Biology is not bigotry.
Yeah.
So this honorary board member of Freedom from Religion Foundation now is posting this article called "Biology is Not Bigotry." Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different points in here that I have different problems with. And again, I think there are some really, really good videos that are already out there, and some really good discussions that are out there. Him at Meta also did a really good one too. Again, I really love the Transpositions one. If you guys are familiar with that, go check it out for sure. There's a couple of different moments throughout this article that I think go ahead, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, before we kind of get into a critique of it, what is the article stating essentially? Like, what's the idea of it?
I think this is very much in line with a lot of what we have seen coming out of Richard Dawkins and some other individuals in that vein, where I would say, and I think this is a pretty fair statement here, I think they are purposefully attempting to make this conversation less nuanced. And I think to the point that they are being dishonest. I think it is clear that these individuals will say one statement that brings in nuance and allows for that squish and that fluidity demonstrably that's existing. And then they'll make a statement right after that very much seems to discount that entirely. And so that
Well,
seems to me like it's dishonest, just flat out.
it, it
Again,
it definitely
go ahead.
changes the subject entirely. It
Yeah.
it is replacing the entire discussion and trying to circumvent what the discussion is about. And so when we're talking about sex and gender, this keeps getting brought up. People go, "Why are you talking about this in atheist spaces?" It's getting brought up in atheist articles. It's getting published on the FFRF. This is a dividing point between people in this community, right? And so if people are wondering why are we having this conversation, that's why. This is called skeptic generation, not atheist generation. And yes, most of the people on this show are atheists. And yes, that is the position that I take and that Elliot takes. Fine. But skepticism does not end with religious conversations. And there are too many people who try and stop using skepticism, right after they come to the God conclusion. And so we need to apply that, right? We're talking.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead, please.
Well, so when we're applying skepticism to sex and gender, right? What is it? Why is it that way?
Yeah.
Right? And we break through past that, right? The established notions is that there's male and female, and both of those things have a direct correlation with biology and sociology and the way we treat each other. When the fact is your biology is one thing, the way your society treats you because of your biology is different, and
Your identity is different from both of those.
absolutely.
mean,
And so
I don't think that is a radical statement. I think that is very demonstrable to the point that it honestly it follows everybody's criteria. I think I can show to people's satisfaction that they agree with those statements.
yeah.
I don't think I think that's right there. That says to me, all right, this has some squish. This isn't a perfect box on any side. And that seems dishonest to then
I mean,
not.
yeah. Well, ultimately, when you're dealing with sociology, you're dealing with people's opinions, and that is why it is based. It is a soft science, and people we don't recognize what methodologies are used for soft sciences always, right? It's not a hard science. It's not X plus Y equals Z. It is hey, we asked 5,000 people this question based on their answers. We're going to take that feedback and we're going to do a graph of what that is and how they compare to the mean. We taking into account biases, things like that, geological factors, or geological factors, where people are geologically or geographically. It will change. Anyway, what I'm getting at here is that when it comes to a soft science, we are dealing with changing definitions that have changed in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual for psychology, and a changing view of how our society wants to treat people. And so if we get into the details of what is a woman, that is a conversation that has to do with how we socially treat people. How people identify what they're, and how they want to interact in the society. What this response article is saying, I'm not going to address that. Instead, I'm going to pretend like you're stupid when it comes to biology. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say, no, women exist and men exist. And what you're trying to say is there are, we're sexually dimorphous. That's right. Sexual dimorphism.
Sexually dimorphic. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're a sexually dimorphic species. And so, yes, understanding biology is fine, but that is not a justification for the social ways that we treat each other. And responding, saying you're stupid when it comes to biology is entirely missing the sociological point. And there is a term for this. It's called bioessentialism. Bioessentialism is this idea that there is something deep in your DNA, in your genes, that we can study your gametes and decide whether or not to socially treat you in X, Y, or Z way. Mm-hmm. And that's not how that works.
Yeah. And I'd just say even because I feel like there is a lot of respect given in casual conversation and general society, it feels to me, in the hard sciences, right? When it comes to those aspects and those studies, I feel like people sometimes even will defer a bit too much, right? It's like, well, the scientists said it. And it's like, well, great, yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, I mean, and there are times when that's appropriate,
Sure.
but
No, yeah,
but
obviously.
but when it comes to the way we should treat each other, that's where we get things like social Darwinism.
Totally. And what I was going to say
Yeah.
was, back to what you had mentioned about we don't understand a lot of times and don't give credit to the methodologies that are in these softer sciences. Like, psychology is not something we started last week, you guys. Okay? We have practices that demonstrably, reliably lead to results, okay? We do understand some fucking things about the world. And so it's not like we're just guessing all the time when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
But I will say, even on top of that, yes, okay, sociology, psychology, soft sciences. By the way, just real quick, so is economics. That might trip a few people up, but just you don't like the soft sciences. Economics is one too. But anyway, real quick, the hard sciences like biology, right, like physics, they actually have a lot more squish in them than people want to recognize. The hard science of biology tells us that, sure, there are human beings that have XX chromosomes, but there are human beings that have X chromosome. There are human beings that have XYY. These are incredibly common, to the point that I almost guarantee you, unless you have completely been sheltered your entire life, you have met multiple people like this.
So here's where I want to jump in and say, but what does that matter?
If the reason I bring that up, specifically, if the argument from the other side is focusing on the biology, and they're saying, some people make the claim, like you said, bioessentialism, some people will make the claim that the categories socially that you fall into should adhere entirely to your chromosomes.
So let's say I'm taking the position of the bioessentialist here, right? And you're taking the position of the initial article writer who says, what is a woman? A woman is socially defined, right?
Sure.
Okay. So if you are making the statement and my response is, Elliot, I'm not listening to you. Instead, I'm going to change the subject.
Sure.
And then your response is to come over where I'm at. I won.
I think I can prove you wrong, though. That's
How?
my point. By your criteria. Well, if you're taking the side of the bioessentialist, are you taking the side that there's only two categories on the bioessentialism side?
I think that if I have gotten you to frame the conversation that way, I have gotten you away from sociology entirely.
I don't think so.
Really? What does gamete type have to do with sociology?
Well, because right now we're discussing whether or not we're going to actually be truthful when engaging with each other in society. If you're taking the side that there's only two types...
But if what I'm doing is changing the subject and not responding to you and what you're saying, and then your response is to follow me down the place that I'm going, I've already derailed the conversation.
So I don't think so, because I think if the conversation starts with, because this conversation often does in these spaces, right? It starts with this big grand statement of how much we all love truth. We all really care about being honest, right? We agree that being honest is the best thing. And then again, this is just for role-playing purposes, everybody. Eric comes at me and goes, you know what, SR? You're not being honest. You're saying there's all these different categories, but there's only two types of chromosomes in humans. Well, I can go, well, hang on a second. Now you're not being honest. And so if I can, even though you've derailed my conversation, you've derailed my topic, If I step into your space and can show that you're being dishonest, you lost from the beginning. You're not being honest anymore.
But if I've moved the conversation away from what you're talking about, then I don't ever need to interact with you where I don't want to. And I can say, that's negligible. That's negligible. It's too small of a group of people. I've moved you out of the conversation.
So do you think that's an honest response, though?
No, I think it's deeply dishonest. I think it is something that a lot of people do that we don't call out.
Well, that's what I think is the value, is if we follow the person, right, where they're taking the conversation, because I agree, they're trying to shift the conversation so that they don't have to have the topic that they don't want to talk about, right? Which again is, I think, pretty an easy stance. Somebody please yell at us for this, but I think human rights is an easy thing for us to be on board with. But okay, you don't want to talk about that, so you move the conversation to biology, still supposedly under this cone of we're being honest, we're being truthful, and we care about that. If I can demonstrate that by your criteria, you are being dishonest, I think that's a valuable service for the public, because then I think, and I'm bringing this somewhere, okay? Because the title of this is beyond forgiveness. Right?
Oh, geez, yeah. The whole topic isn't specifically about this, right?
No, hang on. Yeah. But this is why I feel like we laid some good pipe here, because I feel like I can land this.
Eric and Elliot laying pipe on air. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Somebody click that. But anyway, okay. So if I agree, we've shifted the topic now. I've moved into this person's space, but again, I believe I've shown that this person is being dishonest, right? In this position, we all claim we want truth. We all claim that matters to us. This person now has been shown to be dishonest by their own criteria. And I think that is a good line for us to utilize when thinking about moving forward with how people make mistakes and when people do wrong actions and so forth.
So
does that make sense why I pulled that together like that?
Yes, and I want to be pedantic.
Let's do it.
It's not being dishonest when you're wrong. And if you prove me wrong or show that I am not right 100%, and I'm only right 80%, 90% of the time, then I still am walking away with 80 and 90% authority on the topic. And you are just making me concede a small point. I am not dishonest if you are having that conversation. I'm just not 100% correct. The dishonest part is changing the subject. That's the dishonest part. Not this black and white conversation. And when you call that out and say it's dishonest, people I think are going to take you less seriously, because they're going to go, Elliot, he's not dishonest. He just wasn't 100% right.
So I think this is right. Okay.
And I'd rather be 80, 90% right about the topic than be completely off when it comes to the actual bigger conversation that we're supposed to be having.
Sure. But just real quick on that, I think, yes, there's a huge difference between just being wrong, right, and being dishonest. It's the difference between misinformation and disinformation, right? Misinformation, M, is a mistake. Disinformation, D, is deliberate. You did it on purpose. You knew it was fucking wrong to begin with, and you still said it as if it was truth. That is dishonesty, right? If you know something is wrong and you still tell somebody, like, you say, my criteria, this fails, and I still put it out there to people and tell that it works. That is dishonesty. And that, I think, can be shown in Jerry Coyne's article, to be honest.
Oh, so the dishonesty of changing the subject, yes.
Okay. So what about, let me
the dishonesty of putting a different argument in the mouth of the person he's disagreeing with, straw manning his interlocutor.
So I totally agree with that. Again, I'm on board with that. I'm on board with that. But Let me see if I can find.
Sure. In the meantime, while you look, I'm going to
Yes.
put the phone number out there. We had a couple of people, and a couple of people dropped out, and I'm wondering why. But there are lots of pieces to hop in here, and if you want to have this conversation, we want to have it with you. So here's the phone number. One more time, we have a call screener who is waiting to take your call. It is 412-753-7436. That's 412-SKEPGEN, or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. It is toll free, paid for by the show. Call screener is waiting to take your call. We'd love to talk to you. This is a call-in show. Okay, what'd you got?
So, a couple of different points
Yeah.
here. There's one point where Jerry Coyne says this exactly. To all intents and purposes, sex is binary.
Mm-hmm.
He then later goes on to discuss when he uses the term sex, especially in mammals, he is specifically referring to gamete production, whether they produce small or large gametes. If, right there, if that is the only two options, do you agree that that statement about sex being binary is correct? If it is the case that humans, the only two categories for humans would be small gamete production, large gamete production.
So I think that conversation can be proven wrong.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And not 100% wrong, just some wrong, right? But that means that I'm still mostly right, and people are going to walk away from it going, "Oh, they had this gender discussion. Eric was mostly right, though."
I don't think it can be considered mostly right. I think if you say so, and here's why. Because I agree that there is at least 4 categories in this understanding, right? That's easy to understand. There is both, there is small, there is large, there is none. There's at least 4 categories. And later on in the article, Coyne goes on to specifically point that out.
Right.
And continues to say sex is binary. He's not mostly right on this. He's absolutely flat out 100% wrong and dishonest by his own criteria.
Sure. And you can prove that wrong.
What do you mean?
So if the statement is it's 100% binary, then that is wrong. You're correct.
Correct.
And so if you say, I don't know, 30-40% of the population has different gamete types than their sex expresses. Okay,
Correct.
Cool. Then I'm still mostly right.
I don't see how there's a middle ground on this, is the thing. Either there is 2 categories or there is not 2 categories.
Okay, but so if I grant there's more than 2 categories, still more than not have XX and XY. I have changed the subject. You are no longer talking about whether or not we can or should treat people the way that they want to be treated. That is not on the conversation. We are not talking about any of that right now, because instead I'm having a separate conversation with you about this. And you followed me here, which means we're not having the more important discussion.
I agree, but again, the reason why I think that is important in some contexts is because now it shows you are not an honest person. You're not interested in engaging with truth anymore. And so nobody should take you seriously. You've been shown by your own criteria to be perfectly happy with being dishonest. I think that is huge.
not correct. Again.
No, because again, if you grant that there are more or less than 2 categories, and then go on to explicitly say there are 2 categories only, that would be dishonest, right? That's not wrong. That's not a mistake.
Sure.
I think if we can demonstrably show individuals like Jerry Coyne are not engaging honestly in this conversation, we shouldn't take them seriously on any side.
Yeah, and
whatever your viewpoint is.
Yeah, and I think that if you followed them into that conversation, you lost. You lost. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. Definitely.
We actually have someone who I haven't talked to in a really long time.
Hey, good.
In a really long time. someone who I knew back from my ACA days.
Hey.
Let me get the lower third here. Boo, 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 boo. And Jim, long time no talk.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, I know. I guess it has been a while.
I missed that laugh. How's it going? Long time. It has been a really long time. I'm assuming you're still in Texas?
No. I moved, got a girlfriend. She was travel nursing, and now I'm in Slocum, Alabama, because we both love diving, and from where we are right now, we're 2 hours from the ocean, hour and a half from the ocean, depending on traffic.
Okay.
And within an hour of quite a bit of freshwater diving as well. So, yeah.
That sounds great.
Good for you. I missed you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you wanted to hop in here. What's going on?
Well, so when Esther was quoting Coin about gamete production and sex, I think that the problem that anybody trying to put boxes around biology has is that biology defies boxes, right?
Absolutely.
Because in that definition, you completely ignore people who are, or mammals, it's easier for the mammals, that are born intersex.
Mm-hmm.
They produce them.
Okay.
And it's a small percentage of the population that does that in any species, but there is a non-zero number that do.
Okay.
And so it defies boxes. And this is the problem that we have with people who don't understand biology, I think, in general, is they try to put boxes around stuff, and because biologists do, and nature doesn't really like boxes, you know?
So Jim, I do got to tell you, I hate the position you're putting me in right now, because in order to argue this and have this out, I'm needing to take the position of the bioessentialist.
Yeah.
My partner is trans. I am like deeply uncomfortable, but I'll take it here because I really want to make sure that I'm drawing this conclusion here. I want you to push back on me, okay, Jim? Okay. What does that have to do with how we treat people, or treating them the way they want to be treated?
Well, so that's two separate questions.
No,
right?
but if the conversation is about treating people the way they want to be treated, recognizing trans people in our society, and I have changed the conversation to biology, and instead of talking about people being treated the way they want to be treated, instead what you're doing is meeting me in biology. I have changed the subject. So I could be wrong, I could be right, I could have whatever conversation I want to have. I won by making you stop talking about treating people the way they want to be treated.
Well, so yes and no. You're definitely, I mean, you're going to play both sides, and I understand that they do that, but that doesn't. So here's my pushback on that. You should always treat everybody with the most empathy you possibly can and without judgment.
Okay, but you cannot.
That's how you want to, because sure. Otherwise what we end up doing is jumping to conclusions and making bad decisions based on things that don't really matter. And sure. Empathy is the best way for us to work as a society. And so if you're not going to do that, biology doesn't matter. You're just looking for an excuse to be an asshole.
Okay. And if I am convinced that, in a bioessentialist way, that men are animals, men are vile and prone to violence, especially sexual violence, then am I getting into the principle that you're talking about? Am I treating people with empathy?
No, you're assuming that everybody is the same. You're assuming that everybody, that men, in your case, as you mentioned, are a particular way, when you're not accounting for the diversity of men types. Are there men who are sexually aggressive? Yes. Are there men who are sexually aggressive to the point of violating other people's rights? Yes.
Okay, so
There are, but
so
that doesn't mean they all are. And so you're not treating people, individuals especially, with empathy. You're painting with this broad brush so you can justify anything you want,
right,
rather than deal with people as they are.
so if I'm taking this position in this conversation, implicit in my argument is this idea that you believe is uncharitable and truly unkind, right? I agree with you, by the way. Just want to make sure we're like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
We are still not talking about treating people the way they want to be treated. We now move the conversation
I
again.
am. What are you talking about? I am. What is your fictional person you're talking about?
So
'Cause I know you're not talking for yourself, so I'm using the fictional person.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
reinforce
absolutely.
The fact you're not speaking for yourself.
Thank you, and I sincerely appreciate that, Jim, because I know this is going to get taken out of context. So let me clarify. I was doing video editing work for my friend Drew, who has the show Genetically Modified Skeptic. He's actually going to be guesting next week on the show, and he was doing a video about. He was offered a gig to do an interview with Richard Dawkins, right? Mm-hmm. And he turned it down. And it was a big opportunity, could have given him a huge audience. And Drew was like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to be put on a stage where I need to fawn over this piece of shit. And went into specifically why, right? As a video editor, what I needed to do is I needed to go through a ton of footage of Richard Dawkins' podcast and guests and people who are taking this position, right? So there are a lot of people, and these are specifically, like, Richard Dawkins by name is one of the people who quit FFRF's honorary board over this scandal. So there's a direct connection there, right, in this conversation. So let's now get into it, right? I'm trying to steelman to the best of my ability the side that got super pissed off about all of this.
So, real quick, here's what I wanna. Here's the part that I want to focus on, because I think that video by Drew is beautiful for this. This is a great example, in my opinion. And tell me if you think I'm wrong, Eric. But Drew was basically saying the reason that he didn't take that opportunity was because he knew he had already come to the conclusion. He believed Richard Dawkins in this conversation is dishonest and can be shown to be as such. And because the conversation was not going to be one where he could adequately express that and explain that to people, he felt that it wasn't worth it.
Well, he was
wasn't worth
it. Yeah, if he couldn't challenge that, then he was just sharing a platform with Richard Dawkins.
So with that, what the reason you can probably see me bouncing in my fucking chair like a little kid. I'm so excited. I think that's really important, because I think that kind of lends some points to my side here, which is this idea that, hey, wait a second, I can follow you down this rabbit trail for just a second, just to point out that you fail by your own criteria and you don't seem to care about it. And that shows you to be a dishonest interlocutor. And that I think is important. I think that's valuable that we show that about individuals that are out there with a platform, making these statements very broadly to the public. I think that's a valuable thing. Yeah. Like, you're right, we moved the conversation, but I don't think they win.
So
it's a slippery slope when we allow them to define how we treat people by biology.
Well,
right? And we know it's a slippery slope. That's not a fallacy, because we have slipped down this slope before by making decisions about people's worth based on skin color, based on eye shape, based on where they live. We know we have done this as humanity. So it's not the slippery slope fallacy. This is a slippery slope for humanity to make judgments based on someone's worth by their biology. And so that's kind of the problem. I agree with that song on this.
So I think the position here, though, is you have responded to now the statement, right? The bioessentialist argument.
Mm-hmm.
And no one has gone back and actually said that this is the actual conversation. We've spent so much time and so much priority pointing out everywhere I changed the subject that we are not having what I feel is the more important conversation, and that is how we treat each other.
So I
started with that, and you pointed out you had changed the subject, and so I think we're exactly talking about how we treat other people, right? We need to treat people according to their biology or according to the fact that they're human, right? Those are the two questions we have.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I think yes, the point you're making, Eric, I think is the point that needs to be driven home, right? And so the way I think about this is, okay, I'll step into your space for a little bit to demonstrate that you are dishonest. You are not engaging in this conversation in the way that you claim you want to and you value. And then after we do that, then we go back to, I think, exactly what you said. Hey guys, look, not only are they being dishonest in this conversation, but they've hijacked it to begin with. And the more important conversation is here about how we treat people. And I think, again, to go back to, and we are going to talk more about this, about forgiveness and stuff here, about how people can make amends when wrong things are happening. I think when we are in that headspace about forgiveness, when we're in that headspace about reconciliation of some kind, if we have proven, if we have shown the interlocutor is dishonest repeatedly, I think that is important criteria when it comes to making amends, because I don't think that amends can be made right there.
Well,
I think that is a huge hurdle to reconciliation.
Oh, so let's get into the details on this then. Jim, you want to join us for this?
No, you know what? I let someone else. You guys, other callers, I'm sure.
Actually, I could use more callers. But totally understood. Jim, call back. Get in touch. Do you still have my phone number?
I think so.
Call me.
All right.
All right. Take care, brother.
I'll do that. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, brother.
Okay. He is. So let's talk about reconciliation. Who wants to be reconciled? I don't think Richard Dawkins or Jerry Coyne are apologizing and wanting reconciliation. So let's get into the aftermath of this. In the aftermath of it, a bunch of these people quit because Jerry Coyne's article that says, biology is not bigotry, got taken down by FFRF because rightfully so.
I think absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of these bioessentialist people took their ball and went home.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are implicitly saying that we stand behind Jerry Coyne and we value that more than we value our contributions to FFRF.
Yeah.
They are putting their arguments about trans rights over any type of atheist community building and support. So let's be absolutely clear here. These people who are leaders in atheist skeptic conversations have prioritized this over being the part of this community.
Yeah, I think it is a fair statement. And again, guys, y'all know how to yell at me if you want to. So if I'm wrong, tell me. But I think it is totally a fair statement to say those individuals, and there's a bunch more that we can list, right? But yes, they are not interested in reconciliation.
Right.
It does not appear to me that they are interested in allyship. It does not appear to me that they... Yeah, I think that's clear, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. Okay.
So, go ahead.
What about FFRF?
That's the next place to go.
That's right. The conversation I want to have for sure.
And we spent like an hour laying the groundwork for it. But so first off, what we're saying is that it looks like FFRF went, hey, this article was posted by this honorary board member. We don't agree. We feel, essentially what we've been talking about, right? That this that you are trying to change the discussion to bring up bioessentialist talking points that is demeaning and dehumanizing and used as excuse to deny trans people, greater acceptance into community. So FFRF took that step back. People drew battle lines. And it sounds like you're saying that FFRF is now in trouble because people are mad at them for posting the Jerry Coyne article, not forgiving them for taking it down. And also they lost this whole contingent of people. Nobody's happy with FFRF right now, it sounds like.
And that's kind of what I want to talk about. And that's kind of what I want to, because I think it would be too much to say that there aren't things that people could do or organizations could do or say that we shouldn't attempt to reconcile, right? I think there are instances like that. But I also think it is not crazy to say that good individuals, abso-fucking-lutely on our side, make mistakes. And one step further, I actually think there are people who are wrong right now and can change their mind, right? All different categories.
Yeah.
All different categories.
Where are we planting this and having this conversation then?
I'm not positive as part of the issue. I believe FFRF has absolutely demonstrated that in general, they are an ally. They are somebody that stands in a camp that you and I could stand next to and say, we're pushing in the same direction. But this was a mistake. And
so,
how do we make amends for that? What are your thoughts on that, man?
My thoughts on that is personally, it's a bitter thought. And it is that it is indicative of something that I have seen in most big atheist organizations. So this is probably going to piss a lot of people off. And genuinely, this is probably going to upset a lot of people. And please push back if you disagree. But atheist organizations have a really, really bad habit of sweeping under the rug problematic people. It is an open secret in the atheist world that there are some really fucked up people who hold positions on boards of big atheist organizations. And nothing gets done until there's an outcry for it. And so it creates a toxic environment. And they're happy to keep it so long as they have their patrons and contributors. But as soon as it gets called out, then it's time to pay attention. I think that the fact that Jerry Coyne and Richard Dawkins were still on the honorary board of FFRF to begin with says that the only reason FFRF cared is because it got called out, not because they were doing the right thing to begin with. They cultivated a place where these people can thrive. Number one, we do need to recognize that where people like this exist, there are people who don't feel safe or comfortable being in that community. So you don't have the benefit of people being there because it's a safe space, right? And you're just losing, like every part of this was done wrong.
Sure.
And this is not unique to FFRF. I want to be super clear here. American Atheists has done it. The atheist community of Austin has done it. And now FFRF is doing it. And it's a reason why I'm deeply disillusioned by a lot of atheist organizations. And I'm very, very frustrated. And I'm very not up for contributing to them. Because things don't get done about fucked up and problematic people unless it affects their bottom line and not because it's the right thing to do.
So here's where, and I don't even know that I would call this pushback so much as maybe just clarification, right?
Yeah.
Do you think what you've described is the majority? Do you think it's the overwhelming majority? Do you think it's the norm? Right? Like
the norm of atheist organizations, the majority of atheist organizations, or what?
Yeah. In that space, in our space. Yeah.
Do
you think what you're describing is kind of part and parcel for this, you know?
For the most part,
Or-
I haven't seen problems with recovering from religion. And the like work that your organization has gotten the works, you know, but
Sure, and there's other, but you're saying you think the largest of the organizations in our space tend to have these problems. That's more of a norm for them, but then maybe some of the smaller organizations aren't as caught up in it.
yeah, I think that I've seen a very, very different take by the Satanic Temple. When there were problems, they fucking split. They were not about holding in on there. When there were shitty people, they decided to out them. And that's why it wound up getting, you know, split in different directions. And that's why there are a lot of, you know, kind of autonomous local groups that are doing their thing, because they're like, you know, fuck that. We're not going to be a part of this larger group if, you know, these issues aren't being addressed. So like it can happen. And I think that if we want to take the moral, ethical, correct position, we should commend groups like the Satanic Temple for doing what they did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so like bringing this back to FFRF.
Mm-hmm.
FFRF wants people's forgiveness for the Jerry Coyne article.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that. They should be asking forgiveness for having people like Richard Dawkins and Jerry Coyne on the honorary board to begin with. And they should be really looking at what kind of problematic people are in their organizations, because they're stirring shit up, and like it's going to affect you. And also you are creating a fucking terrible environment in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I guess, is where we're at here with Beyond Forgiveness, right?
Yeah, and I do want to call out Rogue Lesser in the chat, who said that it's always about this specific issue. No, it's not. There are sexual predators who have absolutely gone unaddressed and continue to be unaddressed as an open secret in the atheist community, who are board members of those organizations. So it's not just this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Shitty people exist everywhere, guys. Yeah, for sure. But this is where, okay. So again, I'm not really going to push back on the idea of like, hey man, they definitely need to have some internal review processing and be looking in the mirror and stuff in general. Yep, always with that.
Yep.
Always with that in general, honestly, whether or not anybody's been called out for anything. That is just a practice we all personally and structurally need to be fucking doing more often. On board. Here's where I'm struggling. And I'm really not sure on this, you guys. Like, this is something that I think we as a whatever kind of loose-knit fucking community we are, right? Shit, just as people, we need to have this discussion. What do we do?
Yeah.
What is this going forward?
Absolutely.
FFRF seems to me oftentimes one of, if not the only, organization that is actively fighting against anti-LGBTQ laws in my state.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do with that? Does this article, does them having this honorary board with these people that I absolutely disagree with, I think we're 100% on the same side there, right? Does that mean we don't support them going forward? Does that mean that when they are organizing a protest at the Capitol for the opening of legislative session and bringing on local trans activists and platforming them and saying, we support you and we're not going to stop fighting in this next year, do I not support them because of this? What do we do? That's the question, you guys.
Yeah, the word support, I think, is a problem, because it's not full-throated support or none at all. Both the Freedom from Religion Foundation and American Atheists have amazing lawyers, people who I've known personally, who I adore. People who I've in my personal life, I think are incredible human beings. Yeah. I support these efforts, these legal, pushbacks to, Christian dominionism in the United States. I think that we should continue to support that. And that should never be cover for keeping a deeply problematic culture and a deeply problematic community. And so calling this out is not saying, hey, don't support, the legal stuff, but it is drawing a line between the work that it's doing and the community, right?
And I think that's the right stance. I think that this is something we need to do more, you guys. Like, an organization or an individual will be incorrect, even with the best intentions, right? But also, sometimes people just do bad things, right? And I think we have to, as a community, call that out and hold people accountable, while making sure that we are not holding back and demonizing the good stuff that is still happening. I think there is this kind of space to be nuanced about this, Again, I am not supporting I'm not supporting Jerry Coyne and Richard Dawkins and Steven Pinker coming back on the board or posting articles. No, totally wrong to post the article to begin with. But I think there's also a way forward. And I think a lot of this has to do with what happens next. I think that's really telling. If we start seeing articles from like this getting posted regularly on FFRF, it feels to me like, hey, maybe you guys aren't so serious, right? Like, maybe you guys didn't really give that much of a shit and you're just kind of being performative. If, on the other hand, let's say FFRF goes through the effort of brings on a whole new board, and 3/4 of them are trans people and people of color, and they start hosting events and they're pushing back on all these laws. That feels to me like, hey, that's somebody or an organization we should attempt to reconcile with. Is that too far? Is that too ridiculous?
So the title of this episode is Beyond Forgiveness. And the question about whether or not FFRF is beyond forgiveness. And I want to draw a line here. But first, I want to let people know that we do have open lines. I would love to talk to people. If you want to call in, let's put the phone number out there. The phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. We have a call screener who is ready. We have more than one call screener who are ready to talk to you. And we would love to have this conversation, especially if you disagree with us. But either this topic or another that the show takes, we're happy to take. But all right, getting into this. I think in general, as a rule, setting FFRF aside, forgiveness has to be a thing. Absolutely. I was not the person that I am always, and, people grow and change, and that's totally understandable. And also an organization, especially one as big as American Atheists or FFRF, is comprised of a lot of people. And one shitty person in there does not spoil the entire thing. And one shitty person in there can make it very unwelcoming for an entire group of people.
Yup. And can ruin a lot of stuff.
So is that spoiling the entire bunch? I mean, kinda, sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, if that's the case, then we've got to deal with that. I'm bitter and angry that it's getting called out after this. And it wasn't dealt with before.
And I don't disagree with that. I think there should have been months ago, years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Right. I think. I think now Coyne. I don't really know him very well, but I've heard the things Dawkins has definitely said for a while, so it's a little odd to me. Yes. Again, I agree, and I don't think it's incorrect for people to be pointing that out and attempting to say FFRF needs to be accountable for that as well, right?
No.
Not just the posting of this article. I think that's fair.
And there's also something to be said about, finding allies in a cause, right? I can deeply disagree with you about one issue, but we can both get together and collaboratively work on something else, right?
Totally agree.
So if someone like Richard Dawkins or Jerry Coyne had the kind of pull, which they do, to draw support to this issue, right, of a religious overreach into public life in the United States, then fine. And also, don't bring your shit onto our forums.
Interesting. Okay, so let me clarify there. Let me ask a clarifying question. Are you saying that going forward, let's say FFR, and I don't even know that this is possible, it's totally hypothetical, right? But going forward, if let's say FFRF did some conference and it was entirely focused on Christian nationalism or Seven Mountain Dominion, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they brought on Richard Dawkins, and his entire speech was just about the dogma of religion and how silly and nonsensical that is and unconstitutional, the Christian nationalism. And he never once mentioned biology, trans people, allies, nothing of that. Are you saying that you would be in support of that? Are you saying that would be a situation that
Sure.
you would feel okay with? Yeah.
So Richard Dawkins is an evolutionary biologist. That's what his education is in. That's what he's trained in. And that's what he writes books about. If we're wanting to know about what this British person has to say about United States politics in an area that he is entirely unqualified and unprepared to speak about, then doing that for anybody is a stupid idea.
Sure.
And alone would preclude Richard Dawkins from that conversation. So if you want to have a conversation about Christian overreach into public life here in the United States, they have people already. Get the lawyers who are doing the work to speak about that in particular. That's who I want to hear about. I want to hear, about the cases that you've taken on. How many wins, how many losses? What have we done? What has our support gone to when it comes to fighting this overreach? Those are the people who should be up on stage for that.
Sorry, I was just gonna let me shout back real quick, make sure kind of on this. I think I'm kind of with you. It sounds like basically you're saying, look, there are better people to begin with. There are better and other people that we should just be having in that position anyway.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. I'm kind of on board with that too,
sure.
Man. I think that is a fair. Yeah, that's a fair thing, right? I think especially when we find certain people that are so against various issues that I think fall well within.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that anybody would ever say human rights. The discussion about human rights does not fall within skepticism. That blows my mind. But hey.
And all you got to do is apply some skepticism. Why do you think that?
Yeah, right. I mean, literally, that's
it.
Right away. It's so easy, guys.
Yeah.
And again, also like the simple fact that the religious are so focused on this issue. Like, if somebody came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, why does sex positivity? Why does that ever come up in a discussion about religion?" And I'd go, "Oh my God, you haven't read the Bible. Like, you've never read a religious book in your life." They talk a lot about it, and they are very negative, So that's why we talk about it, is because, they're super against it.
Absolutely.
And they're wrong. Okay. I think, So I think, a lot of this we are, largely on the same side here. And again, I think this is a really important discussion about how moving forward we can individually make sure that we are supporting the right people and the right organizations that are doing good things, and yet exactly what you said, not allowing that to be cover for any of the wrong actions or the mistakes or anything. And I'm gonna say this might piss somebody off, okay? But I'm a little optimistic about this, you guys. I'm a little optimistic about this one. I know the track record hasn't been fantastic from organizations in the past necessarily. I am going to be tentatively optimistic for now, you guys. And I am hoping that throughout this year, we are going to see things that demonstrate the allyship and the correction and the changes that I think need to be made at, in various places at FFRF. I'm very much positive about that. And if I'm wrong, we're coming back on here and we're going to point it out. We're going to fucking talk about it then. So, because
I think that as a content creator, there are people who can crush me. And there are things that I've done to speak out that has caused me a lot of doors to be closed to me already. I think that in general, when it comes to forgiveness, we do need to keep that open and available. And also, these organizations need to clean house. They need to clean house because it's the right thing to do, not because they're getting called out for it or because it's affecting their bottom line. So, support. Excuse me. Support what FFRF is doing legally. Support what American atheists are doing legally to fight Christian dominionism, in the United States, and also hold these organizations accountable and fight to make sure that people are standing up for what they're standing up for, and we're creating the community that we want to see. Because we're not going to have that community if we're all turning our heads the other way. And the files that I've got are. Anyway.
And I'll just say this to add on to that, because I totally agree. Totally agree with that. And it is a constant battle, folks. That is what we always need to remember. Okay. It is not we wake up tomorrow and then we did it, guys. Transphobia is gone. Like, that's not how it works. That isn't how it works. No. It is a constant battle to ensure that the lines of human rights are always maintained. It will always be that way because, unfortunately, despite our best efforts, there will always be people out there that want to push that stuff back. And that's why, look, if you're bummed out about the fact that we talk about our queer friends and family, hey, man, you don't have to watch that episode, I guess. But again, I really don't understand why anybody would ever be like, oh, man, that doesn't feel like that's a topic for us.
Yeah, I actually push back even more. It would benefit me to welcome people who are assholes into this community. Financially, it would grow the channel. And also, it would make a toxic place for the people who call this community a home. Yeah. And because of that, I'm happy for people who disagree to call in and have these arguments on the air. But if you're a piece of shit, you are not welcome in this community.
Yeah. Right.
Straight up. Straight up.
The general don't be a douche rule, you guys. Is this what? Yeah. Why is this not something we're all on board with?
Now, we've got numerous callers. I'm really excited about it. I am going to hop into this person, and then once we get started, I'm going to step away for just a minute. I need to get a drink of water. There's something going on here. So let me start by pulling in Herbert from Pennsylvania. Herbert, you're live on the air. Herbert.
Hey, Eric. Hey, Secular Rarity. How you guys doing?
Hey, doing well. Ediberto, right? That's you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm happy that you're here. You want to talk about institutional forgiveness. I am ready for this conversation. I am still here. I'm just grabbing a glass of water. I've got this up, and what do you got? What do you want to talk about?
What you're talking about in here. I mean, I don't know too much about trans rights except what I see, other people representing. I consider myself an ally. But I'm a cis, straight, white guy. It's not really my forte. I will say this. I think a lot of what I see in terms of hate in the media right now is people are looking to corrupt relationships, corrupt society. And some of it, when it comes to transphobia, I think is fake. Like when I see Caitlyn Jenner, former, trans woman Caitlyn Jenner, talk about how she doesn't want women or trans women in sports. I know that I'm not listening to an honest interlocutor because she takes part in sports as a trans woman, right? I think a lot of it is hate, and I want to tie in a kind of something I was thinking of in terms of anthropology, where the disgust idea comes from, like from a human being perspective, from an animal perspective. Disgust is from eating something which is bad for you. It's consuming something that's bad for you. And when you see transphobia, which is an expansion of that disgust, it just seems like it's really dishonest people that are looking to corrupt the system and also bring out some people who really feel that disgust but have never explored that. But that's not what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about institutions and how we have to protect them even when they fail.
Real quick,
go ahead.
real quick, Herbert. No, you're fine. No, that's just, you brought up something that's really super cool, and I don't get an opportunity often to say this, so I want to shout him out. There's actually this really, really cool dude named Dr. Richard Firth, Firth, and he does a lot of discussed research and understanding and stuff. He's got some really, really cool stuff on that. So yeah, go check him out on that. But let's go back to the institutions.
Okay.
Yeah, in today's political environment, institutions are really under attack. And some institutions we like, some we don't like. But when you think about as I think all human beings, morality behind as an agnostic, and I've heard yours speak about as an atheist, your morality comes from the conception of human cooperation, right? And institutions are these. Human cooperation is that, or these institutions are the epitome of human cooperation in some ways, right? Like we're gathered together, we're working towards an individual cause. Now that doesn't mean that all institutions are good and are pro-cooperation or pro-human rights, but they're institutions are an attempt to cooperate with one another. And I think the corruption.
I do want to push back just a little bit. These institutions, when you say the epitome, I hear the height of. They're an example. They're an example of human cooperation, but they are not the best version we can think of.
Yeah. I think I'm with
I agree
that too, Eric. Yeah.
Okay, go on. I don't know if that caveat is going to change what you're saying. I just want to make sure that I don't lose that.
Not at all. Not at all. I was misspeaking. I would agree. Not epitome. The manifestation of. So I think it's important that we protect our institutions that are under attack. Did I lose you guys?
No. Well, did you lose us topic wise? No, it's okay.
No, I lost the feed, but I'm okay. Sorry about that. But now, so I think it's important that we protect them because in today's state of fascism, of authoritarianism, and so forth, kind of bringing this up around, I think it's important that we protect institutions even when they fail. I think we just have to decide up front what that means to forgive them, what that means, what is a healthy institution, what we expect from them, so forth.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think this is again. There's there's a struggle here internally for me, because I think, generally speaking, absolutely, like Eric was saying earlier, there's a path forward for forgiveness. I think that's a very good thing that we all keep in mind, right? Because we weren't all the people that we are today. We've all said and done terrible things. Like
Absolutely.
that being said, also kind of in that vein, I'll just say, like, I think there's a lot of demonstration that institutions and structured organizations have been able to make a lot of progress in a lot of things that are valuable for me, right? I do
Yeah.
see that other side, though, that Eric is talking about, where man,
yeah,
there's some shitty stuff that happens too.
I'm definitely taking the position of an agitator, and I'm glad you're taking this other side so we can have this argument out on air. And I want you to tell me where I'm wrong here. But I want to give you an example here to kind of maybe look at an potentially analogous issue. Okay.
Yeah.
So in 2019, I voted for Joseph Robinette Biden. I voted for Biden, first off, because he wasn't Trump. Second off, because he made some promises that I was really hoping for. And what happened during that presidency frustrated me immensely. Turning a blind eye to genocide in Gaza. How about,
that's a big hornet's nest.
Or looking at, before Trump left office last time, he put into effect a tax plan that was going to dramatically increase taxes on the middle class over the next 5 years. And while he was gone, Biden could have stopped those executive orders, but didn't.
I'm
not done yet.
Some of those were scaled.
Yeah.
But can I just push back? Some of those were written into the original 2017 tax law that Biden couldn't have done much with.
And yet he should have made that a top priority. He also decided to not replace several hardcore appointees that Trump put into government positions, because why? Why did Biden do that?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because I can tell you what the reason I was given. The reason I was given is because when they take the low road, we take the high road. When they do something shitty, we are not going to respond in turn. We are going to do the right thing. And better to have this person in this position and work together and create a collaborative environment than what? Undo the damage that was done.
Yeah.
And where did that get us?
Sure.
That got us no closer to women being able to have autonomy. Really? Because how close are women to being able to get abortions anywhere in the United States again?
I didn't say it got us there.
No, there is not the end point. There was the beginning. That was where it started. We are regressed.
There were four major defining things that were occurring when Biden took office. And that doesn't include all the other things that came in. Do I think Biden did not do as well as I would like? He did maybe a quarter of what I'd like, or a tenth of what I'd like. But he did well in an environment
where
fascism around the world popping up. And I just want to push back on that, because there's a lot that could have been done, but we can't get to those because they're setting fires with people who are actively fighting other people taking vaccines.
No, that argument was given to me when it came to fighting for gay rights in the United States while there was a war on. Right?
I agree.
Were you there do you remember that, Herbert, when that happened, when gay marriage was looking at potentially getting legalized in the United States? What people were saying, the response.
You're talking about back in W. You're talking about 2004, 2003, and
I'm thinking 2008 to 2012, right around there. This was during the Obama administration.
I'm not defending any of the policy things you have a problem with. We probably have the same problem in terms of effectiveness and whether or not it was fought hard enough.
Okay, so.
But I'm just saying, that a lot of the complaints you can make about Biden really have to do with the fact that he did a hell of a job on 4 things that we don't normally have to worry about. In terms of an economy, in terms of.
Well, we should send him a participation trophy in the mail and make sure that he's got a gold star on the refrigerator for showing the fuck up. But I don't get awards for not kicking babies. I don't get awards for doing the bare fucking minimum. And I definitely don't praise people for being the better of the shitty options when it's still a shitty option. I want to call that out.
I'm not doing any of that. Hopefully it's clear I'm not doing.
No, I don't think so. But
Herbert, good call. True.
Yeah, and I want to. This is where So I'm like, again, I think all 3 of us. I know y'all 2 have already expressed this. I'll gladly express this myself. I was also pretty disappointed with the last 4 years of how our politics have run. Right. That being said, here's where I definitely want to get some thoughts on, and maybe I have some pushback here with you, Eric. Okay.
And
so you're disappointed. Go ahead.
And by the way, it's going to kill me if I don't add this also in.
Please.
But both the Republicans and Democrats are in the pockets of billionaires who want to see our economy move in a direction that is going to help them and hinder everyone else. And Biden, just like Trump, and just like all of our options for elected officials on the Democrat and Republican sides, are very, very willing to sell out the American public to make billionaires more rich. And so that also, by the way, fuck that. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I think that's fair because honestly, I think it's really funny that a bunch of people are going like, I can't believe Mark Zuckerberg flipped and Elon Musk and all this. It's like, what are you talking about, guys? Do you not look at the lobbyists?
No, they contributed to both sides.
Both sides every time.
Yeah, I mean,
they always do that.
Since I was a child, I've been screaming against supply side economics during the Reagan era. So when it comes to the extremeness of wealth, and the absolute failure of billionaires in our society right now, like I'm in complete agreement with you.
Okay,
so this is part of why we're so upset. Oh, go ahead, Secular. Yeah.
Let me just ask this question because I think we were kind of building up to this point where we're all kind of in the same boat of saying like, we're a little disappointed with this, and so does that mean that the Democratic Party is unsuccessful? Does that mean we don't support them? Does that mean we pull our support to something else? Like they're an organization, they're an institution of some kind, right? Not only have they made mistakes, I think they've covered shit up. I mean, there's all the things that we have all said we hate, right? And yet I have to ask the question, okay, so do we not support them at all? Are they now just an enemy the same as the right, as the GOP, as MAG, whatever, right? Where do we go?
Well, I mean, they're not that. They're not that. I mean, you can call them in the pocket of billionaires because they are in a large part. You can call them. You can say it's an institution which has failed in many respects. Sure. But I was going to say this to Eric earlier. We're on a false dichotomy that shouldn't have to exist, but does exist. Okay, conceptually, there is a false dichotomy that we have to take one of 2 sides. Conceptually, we're not going to see a third party run in the next 4 years and become. I'm just saying. So far, at this point, it's been one or the other.
That's not true.
I think the Democratic.
It's entirely not true. There's
you have a couple independents.
No.
Independents.
I'm not talking about that.
They run on the same thing. They just call themselves Republican light or Democrat.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I get that. Here's where I'm going. Is the modern conservative party, the modern MAGA movement, started from a quote unquote grassroots, very arguable movement called the Tea Party. What the Tea Party did.
I don't know how grassroots that is.
Definitely astrotopia for sure. But that said, what you had is a group of extremists, right? A group of people who decided that they were going to divest themselves of the Republican Party. And enough people chose to divest themselves from the Republican Party that the Republican Party needed to make drastic changes in order to keep its base.
Uh-huh.
Now, I think that when we say our only other option is tyranny, what we are doing is preventing ourselves from actually making positive choices. And the way we're going to make positive change in the party that we're supposed to be, voting for is by telling them they're not going to fucking get our vote. They're not going to get my support. I divest myself from them until they earn it, because they are no longer earning it. And if they want my vote, then they are going to need to shift. And a third party is not going to scoop me up. I'm just not going to support the people who need my vote if they are not going to listen to me. That is shown to have worked over and over again. And yet we stand here acting as if that's not how those things change. It is.
Can I steel man you real quick, Eric?
Go for it.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is the Republican Party, the Tea Party, and into the MAGA movement shows that that the Republican Party wasn't as strong, and the same thing could happen in the Democratic Party. Did I steel man you correctly there?
Not that it wasn't strong. It's that enough people were willing to not be Republicans anymore that the Republican Party needed to shift, and the entire Overton window shifted with them.
And that you think the same could happen in the Democratic Party. Is that your argument?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my question to you then is can that happen without being a crazy extremist party? The people that moved the Republican Party off its line of center were crazy.
Interesting question.
Sure.
Can you do it without crazy people and crazy ideas? The Republican Party's worse now for the mega movement, right? Can the Democratic Party move towards better without the craziness? Because a lot of the tactics they use are very guerrilla type tactics. As far as everything from docking, from insulting campaigns,
doxing,
to attacking. I mean, it's a very.
You did say.
Can you make that?
You did say docking. I know you meant doxing, but that is a different type of
doxing. Yeah.
Anyway.
Something we'll talk about later, folks.
Yeah. Save that for the after show. But Herbert, so that's a really good point. And I think that we've done a really good job of convincing ourselves that the crazies shouldn't be. The fact is that nothing's going to change until we get crazy enough to do it. And if we are not, then we don't. Yeah. Then we haven't earned it. We don't deserve it. Everybody focuses on Martin Luther King. Nobody wants to admit just how influential Malcolm X was. And
I'm all for having the U.S. at European levels of European levels of policy-wise, right? Like I'm all for Medicare for all. I'm all as far as that. What I'm wondering is the to some degree, Democrats or liberals or however you want to parse them up, those on the left tend to be thinking more logically, rationally, and those on the right tend to be thinking more emotionally. And I'm concerned about emotional revolutions. That's always concerned me. I'm an institutionalist at heart.
Yeah. So revolutions are led by emotion. To not recognize that is to not live in reality. They are. They always have been. They always will be. That's just a fact. That said, the great thing is that Democrats, well, liberals at least, leftists, get to fucking tuck themselves into bed and sleep really well at night knowing that they are sitting on their principles. Meanwhile, conservative extremists get to tuck themselves into bed knowing that they're living in the world they're creating for everyone. Which would you rather be?
It's scary. I mean, it's scary. Which would I'd rather be? What I am. That's why I am that liberal. I would rather be liberal and scared right now. That's what I'd rather be. I'd rather be liberal and scared and worried about people and fighting for a world in which I truly believe in than be a corrupt individual who's only looking to enrich themselves and to hurt those that are good opportunities.
Then be willing to fight and be willing to divest when it is the right choice. And now
I'm all for the divestment. Yeah, but I'm not for divesting from vote.
Oh, why?
That's where we're going to have a
Why?
big problem.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
that's the
We-
only
we
reason
can't-
they're
we
going to
can't
change
stop
their vote.
voting.
This is okay. This is
No,
good because we came back around to the topic that I was really wanted. Yeah, I want to ask about this. Okay, so like what do you say, Eric, to somebody who says, well, honestly, man, like in a perfect world, sure, but right now, what your position is going to result in almost guaranteeing the other side winning, almost guaranteeing their world will be enacted.
You're right, which is why Trump didn't get elected twice. You know what? Good point. If people like, I don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert were, if they had a chance in hell of getting elected, maybe. Do you see where I'm going here?
I kind of
Do you?
It almost sounds like, let me see if I'm understanding. It almost sounds like what you're saying, that argument doesn't seem to hold out in reality.
No.
It doesn't seem to hold out as much.
No.
Well, so here's the institution that I have a problem with, and I want this institution to get better. And that institution is called the electorate. The voters, the citizens, I'm so disappointed in them right now. I get the disappointment. We talk about the Democratic Party. We talk about the Republican Party. We can talk about the Greens, and we can talk about it. But the people voting, and I'm wondering what's wrong with the people voting.
Sure. I'll tell you exactly what. I'll tell you exactly the problem. You don't even need to go further. I can stop you right there. What option did the voting population have in the last election when it came to billionaires influencing economic policy? What option did they have?
That's a false question, man.
Really?
That's a false question because you don't get to vote for every single thing that you think is necessary in every single election.
Here's the thing. If they're scared they're not going to have a job, guess what? You will be able to vote on it.
Well, I mean, voters can vote. Voters can go out and find people and
the fact is there are a lot of Joe Bidens.
It's hard to get into it.
Yeah, there are a lot of Joe Bidens out there who are in office who are not willing to do the right thing because they are too interested in sitting on their ideals and letting the world burn. And honestly,
I disagree with your interpretation of Biden, but I'm not going to push back on that because I don't see that. I'm pragmatic again.
Sure.
I don't see that as important. What I do think is important here is I think discussing why are voters voting. If I sit next to someone who's MAGA, someone who's even extremist, someone who's even white supremacist, I've sat next to him before, and if I sit next to him and we talk about the way we want the world to look, 99% of it we agree with, even with a white supremacist, where I want a world where there's people of all different colors and expressions. They don't. If you still talk about the tactileness, what you want the world to look like, it looks pretty damn close. And what I'm wondering is why are people voting for incompetent, corrupt people intentionally? Because they are. People are voting for incompetent, corrupt individuals, and they're doing it with intention. And what I'm wondering is, what is it in our society that we're seeing? Do we think that a person who doesn't deserve a job and is corrupt is somehow some sort of success story? I mean, you got to wonder sometime. Like, you look at all. I mean, there's only like one of them that's like actually. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Marco Rubio, but he fits the bill in terms of skill set. He's the only one. And we're voting for this, and I wonder why. And I'm wondering if it's not because the little man looks around and goes, I'm a piece of shit, but I'd like to live in a world where, as a piece of shit, I could be successful. I think the Dalai Lama once said that Americans should never do a certain meditation because Americans hate themselves. And I believe that right now. I believe Americans hate themselves. And I believe we're looking for hateful creatures to lead us. And
I think that anger is not hate. And I think that doing the right thing costs a lot. And it always has.
That's true.
We did not get a 40-hour work week, and we did not get OSHA without a ton of people dying. We did not get workers' rights until the Pinkertons were hired by big organizations to beat up and incite riots, and like the number of people who wanted to have basic rights as employees came at the cost of a lot of people doing a lot of really, really hard work. And if the hardest work we need to do is not voting for people who don't have our best interests at heart, boo fucking who. But the issue is with the voters. It is us holding this false dichotomy, which you agree is false, and saying this is the best option that we have. Don't.
It's again, I was trying to talk about different concepts there. I was trying to talk about different. It's false in that there are other choices, but practically there are only two choices.
There's a third.
There's three. There's dropout. So there's three, which is dropout, but that's not. The two choices I'm talking about is participating. And you're talking about a third choice, which is non-participating, which I don't consider to be participatory.
Really? Because that's what got Trump in office.
Your best option. That's not what got Trump in office. What got Trump in office was many things, and we'd have to go through many things.
And the biggest,
you did not have a huge turnout in this election. It was a smaller turnout than 2020. What got Trump in office was fewer people voting.
So let me hop in for just a second, Herbert, because I think what you just said there is getting close to kind of where I was gonna ask a question, kind of push back a little with Eric again. So again, that kind of question pushback I had earlier about was, you basically said, hey, look, we're at the point where we have to divest from this institution before we're going to see any meaningful changes. And we had that pushback question of like, hey, you're just guaranteeing the other side, whatever. You said, look, man, demonstrably that's not true. So my next thought comes into this, which is, okay, do you think for this idea, I mean, it sounds like for this idea, we'd need a large mass of people, right? It's not just 10 people that do this. It's got to be in the millions, right? And so the question is, do you think it is feasible that we can garner enough support for that ideology that you're expressing to actually make anything happen, right? Like if we could just, dig wells all over the world right now, instantly, like everybody would have water, right? And it's like, right, but how feasible is digging a well in everybody's backyard, So what do you think on that, Eric?
I think that, again, let's take a look at how this has happened in the Republican Party. What did they do? They organized at the small level. They organized at the local level. And at that local level, they decided to divest themselves from the party that was expecting their vote. And the party that was expecting their vote.
I'm going to push back there. I think it requires terrorist tactics, which requires you to lose all principles to do it.
Bullshit. I don't think no. That is what got us a nation. Let's not fucking mince words here. That's what got us out from under monarchy in other countries. That's what got us, the United States, to be a country, right? Those principles are what got civil rights, workers' rights, women's rights.
And I'm not against all violence. I'm not against all violence. What I'm talking about the peaceful takeover of the Republican Party required terrorist tactics. It was violence that was never fully realized. It was the violence of threat, and I don't know if you can do that with the Democratic Party the same way. I just don't.
Then you know what?
How do you do what threat? What is the threat to make a Democratic senator like, say, this is sick with cinema, like a Kirsten Sinema? What threat do you level against her to get her to change her vote or not to run again? Well, and the only threat that none of the threats worked on her. Why? Because she was corrupt.
Yeah, so obviously revocation of women's bodily autonomy is not enough of a threat. So what do you care? If you don't care about other human beings and you can fly to Europe, what do you care about women's autonomy, even as a woman? So I get you're talking about the rich. I'm just talking about voters. So I want to make sure that we're in the same place. And but also, Herbert, I want you to call on this specifically at the first Sunday of the month.
You need to talk with Tori.
You do need to talk with Tori. I want to try and make sure that we're I want to make sure that we're
for me.
Probably all at each other, which would be amazing. But I'm love to be yelled at. So I do want to like make sure that I'm pulling this together, because this has been half an hour. I enjoy this, but I also have 2 other callers and like 15, 20 minutes left of show.
Sure, yeah.
So, Herbert, I do want to wrap this back around to the beginning of this conversation. And it is not about politics. I went to politics because I thought that was a great analog to whether or not we should be supporting atheist organizations. And honestly, internally, now that I'm realizing that if that's the position that I take, then I think we should not support. I guess we shouldn't support organizations like FFRF and American Atheists and the ACA. If I'm going to be internally consistent, then so long as, they're turning a blind eye until they get caught, and if we're going to keep supporting them, nothing's going to change. I think that we should absolutely be ready. I think we should be.
You were talking about the great work that their lawyers do, and you were talking about a lot of good things about them. That I think you're misplacing internal consistency in here. I think it all has to do with the institution. It has to do with where the institution is, and I don't think these atheist institutions and the Democratic Party are on par for many reasons. I don't.
Yeah, I think that these atheist institutions need to be afraid enough to do the right thing, because they're not doing the right thing on their own. And so if instilling the fear of losing their funding is what's going to push their hand into doing the right thing, then I'm not saying cancel them forever. Yeah, I'm saying withhold support until things are made to your satisfaction.
I think, again, in general, holding accountable and so forth, I'm on board with that, right? I think you're going a little too far, and I think the stance you were having earlier is more in my camp, for sure. More in the, hold them accountable for the bad things. We have to push constantly to make sure that they're doing the right things for the right thing's sake. But I'm always wary about fear as a motivator. Not saying it doesn't work. I'm just always looking for a better motivator. I think there are better motivators, and I think they tend to give us more long-lasting results.
I think 1776 was quite a while away, and I think fear was a great motivator. I think that breaking from monarchy in Europe, fear was definitely a huge motivator. I think fear is the reason the Magna Carta exists. That king saw a whole bunch of other kings with their heads on pikes and went, oh, maybe I should kind of relinquish a little bit. That fear is the reason why there's the parliamentary system in the UK. So let's not discount fear, and let's use it when it needs to be used. But Herbert?
I think fear plays a role. Plays a role. If I can finish my thought.
You have the right to. Go for it.
Fear plays a role, I think. But I think that when you look at the Magna Carta, you look at all the leaps forward that we've done. You look at enlightenment. Fear was there, but also so was hope. And so was human interaction and, human perseverance and struggle.
Absolutely.
And I think, all those were there too. And I think when it comes to any institution, I think the most important thing is whatever you choose your relationship's going to be to that institution, that you have a way to hold that institution accountable.
Agreed.
So you have a healthy relationship, even if it's a relationship of hate, a relationship of, wanting to tear down, that you have at least one where that you understand what your motives are, and you understand that you're acting in a way which is healthy to both of you.
Herbert, I'd like that. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for calling in. I hope to hear from you on the first Sunday of the month.
Great, man. Absolutely. Great talking to you guys. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And there's one thing we can definitely agree on here, Eric, which is, technically speaking, by modern definitions, undeniably, the actions taken by the colonists in the 1760s and 1770s was domestic and international terrorism. That technically is the case. That is really interesting to, it would be, I think
It would be irresponsible to
fun.
say that directly on YouTube.
Well, no, is it? I mean,
okay, so hey everybody,
we're talking about 77.
This video is going to get demonetized.
Yes, it will. I'm so
and it is definitely, no, it's not just you, it's me too. It's definitely not going to get picked up by the algorithm. So
that is true.
If you want to see this conversation being had, and if you want to make sure that this gets out to other people, before we take the next call, hit the like button, hit subscribe. And if you want to support the show, especially if we're going to get demonetized, consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. There has been a dip in support, totally understood, for the holidays, but we are barely able to afford calls. So please help us if you can. Patreon.com/skepticgeneration. Now, I think, Elliot, that we are in a position where, like, I'm sorry, Herbert's words are kind of echoing in my mind. But hope is a thing too. But hard work and perseverance are things. And I feel like we live in a society that has lots of room for those ideals.
Absolutely.
But not fear. And making an argument that there is a place for that, or has been a place for it, is not to the exclusion of the others. So, just saying, if a party needs to be afraid that they're not going to get voted for by their constituents in order for them to make the meaningful change that we want to see, then that is what we need to do. And it's, I think, irresponsible of us to do otherwise. I want to continue.
Great discussion.
Right? We actually have some philosophical stuff. So I want to start by talking to Reuven in Kentucky. Reuven, you're live on the show.
Hello.
Hi. So it says...
I was glad I could remember this time.
I'm really glad you did. What's up? What do you want to talk about?
Talking about choosing to believe something just based on choice.
Okay. Do you think that you can choose to believe something?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think so either. Yeah.
I agree.
I have a friend that does.
Okay.
Ooh.
I would have had him call him, but busy and stuff, and I finally
love that.
remembered myself.
I think one of the best things that we can do, right, in that conversation is to at least try to take a couple of different examples and show that already they accept that there seems to be something different about these things, right? Like, for instance, because I think this idea of choice in general is probably not really there, right? I'm on the side of free will isn't a thing, you know. I'm on the determinist camp, right? But
Same.
I think in this instance, there are certain actions that we take that makes us feel like we have more of that choice. And it's not specifically in the belief, but I'll bring an example of that in a second. But like when we go home after a long day of work and we choose a meal, right? It feels to us very much the case that, like, you know, we can have Chinese food, we can heat up those leftovers, whatever, last night. Let's make a bowl of chili, whatever, right? It feels a lot more in our control as to which one of those options we ultimately end up with. But then if you think about something a bit different, like, let me ask you, Reuven, do you like tomatoes or eggs? Do you just hard boil an egg and eat it? Okay, I don't. I really don't. I really don't care for I really don't care for eggs, okay?
That's fair.
Did you choose to like eggs? Was there ever a point in time where you looked at cooked eggs or uncooked eggs and thought to yourself, gosh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to prefer chicken salad that has a bit more of an eggy taste. Was there ever that choice for you?
No. No.
Yeah. And that's where I think the category of belief sits. You are forced into belief against your will, just the same as you are forced into your taste against your will. I didn't do anything to my taste buds, you know. I was just born, and then this combination of atoms made this silly face, and I got a tongue, and it's just like, yeah, eggs, you know. And I think that is the example you try to use. So something along the lines of like, hey, if you can just choose your belief, like choose to believe that over there, that traffic cone is actually a soccer ball or a kitty cat. Can you really choose that? You know?
I want to echo that sentiment. Saying that belief is a choice is really easy until it's inconvenient, you know. It's easy to say you chose all your beliefs, but as soon as it comes up against something that is difficult, it's easy to say you choose to like all the foods that you like. It's very difficult to say that you can choose. Right, the egg thing. That's a great example. Like challenge your friend. If they think that they can choose their belief, then see if they can choose those. Damn it, Elliot! I got nothing to add. I think that was good. You really kind of wrapped that around really well.
I like that discussion.
Yeah,
So I've had it a lot with people. I've lost many friends over the years. You guys are the only people that'll talk to me anymore.
I really, when it comes into conflict, that's when you realize that you don't choose your beliefs. What you can do though is expose yourself to really good thinking. You know, show yourself, learn how to break things down such that you can have the best toolbox you can, because that is what chooses your beliefs, right? What influences your beliefs is your epistemic reasoning, and that you do have control over.
Yeah.
Reuven, that was really succinct, which is good because I know we're short on time. But exactly. I honestly hope that it helps in your conversation with your friend.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think it will. That was great.
Hey.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Let's jump into the next caller. Elliot, that was so succinct.
Oh, thanks, man. Like I said, I've had lots of discussions on that. A long, way too much probably. Like I probably should have been doing more valuable things with my life. So,
but you're here because of it, right? And I sincerely appreciate it. Our next person is Kina in Washington. Kina, you want to talk about, what do you want to talk about? What's going on?
So it's this thing I see a lot of atheist content creators do. I don't think I've seen it from either of you specifically, but I've seen it I swear pretty much the entire, everyone on the line, I think has said this at some, the theists will say, well, what's the point of life if you're not religious, right? Because it's just a blink, and the grand scheme of things is just a blink and it's over, right? What does it matter that you were even alive if there's no proof you ever existed, right?
Yeah.
And then the standard atheist rejoinder is, well, no, actually, I think it's reverse, right? If your life lasts forever, then it's no longer, there's no scarcity there, right? It's just a given. So it's not actually valuable anymore. And that to me seems very capitalist brained because
that is very capitalist brained. Oh my God.
Okay, I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy.
Scarcity is very much a part of, very much.
Yeah. Sure. I think that we live in a culture that primarily values the capital that you provide, and if you are not providing value, then you do not have value. And it is very fair that you are absolutely right.
Yeah, it's a good recognition, Kina, and I don't disagree with their response in the sense that, hey, actually, I think the fact that life is more scarce makes it more valuable. Again, good observation on your end too. I would, in general, though, I think a stronger rebuttal is just one to say is that it's a non sequitur, right? It is just a false construction of an argument anyway, right? We don't even have to delve into the soundness of the claims and the premises. We just know that structure does not work simply because life doesn't extend forever ever. It has absolutely nothing to say about the current existing life, right? They just don't follow. Those two arguments just don't follow. So like structurally, this argument is just wrong to begin with, you know? But yeah,
I agree
good
100%.
observation on you.
Yeah,
Yeah, good observation.
So I think that if I were being faced with if your life does not go on forever, if there's no afterlife, then your life is meaningless. I think that my response is partially that, like, I live in a pretty cool town, but if I go a block away from my house, those people don't give a crap about me. If I go a city over from mine, those people don't give a crap about me. And so if I don't hold value to them, is my life still valuable? Right? Like, just the only opinion that matters when it comes to your value is your own. And I get to choose to value myself in my life. And I get to choose whose opinion matters. And I think the people who love me and who I love, their opinion matters. And so I don't care. I don't care if you don't see value in my life. I fully expect, honestly, I truly expect that most people don't know who I am or give a fuck about me, even if they do know who I am, because that's normal. You know, value and worth are not just capitalist things. They are what we choose to impart them with. And the fact that I want to be well and to contribute to the well-being of the people who I love and who love me is enough. So that's my response. And if somebody says, well, that doesn't have value, well, good for you. You know, I honestly don't know who most people, I don't know most people. I don't know, and I don't care about them. So I don't expect them to care about me, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I would just say to add on a little bit, that is entirely in line where I come to, like the whole moral discussion and all of that's to how we orient ourselves. I think these things at the end of the day are stance dependent, right? And so if somebody says, well, you know, how does this give you value or meaning or anything? Like, how does this give you purpose or whatever? It's like, well, because my stance is that XYZ is valuable, right? And so it's like, and your stance is that these things are valuable if and only. And so it's like, it's not like we're finding this value out in nature, right? Like we do just trees growing or you know, babbling brooks or anything. You can't do it like that, you know? And so ultimately, this person saying, well, I don't think your life has value unless X, and then me going, oh, I think my life has value whether or not that's the case. I actually, again, think that's kind of a point on my side there of saying, like, yeah, I think what we're all doing at the end of the day is just kind of emoting when we're saying these. I like when we say things like, you know, slavery is wrong or, you know, equal rights for humans. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're just talking about what our stances are more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay. That's good because I think that's a better fucking system once we all realize that and start getting on board. But
Kina, of all of the stuff we talked about during this episode, this call topic is the one that I'm going to go and tell my partner about after the show. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad that you called, and I'm really glad that you hung in there, you know, and chilled on the line so that you could share it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was afraid it was too off topic to be interesting.
No. We got political in a way that I want to make sure that we're pushing for the first Sunday of the month. That way we can kind of silo the conversations a bit more. But that is just too delicious. I like it, and I hope that you call back in with more stuff because that was good.
Okay, I'll do.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
All right,
I had really fun.
Right.
I've had fun today, man.
Me too. Maddie, could you please call in next week? Maddie in Kansas wanted to talk about dissemination of scientific knowledge in a way that I think would be a lot of fun. We just did not have enough time for. And Lazar, again, calling from Serbia. I know it's late. Wanted to call in about the Serbian government being to blame and being beyond forgiveness for infrastructure problems that have led to people dying recently in Serbia. And oh my God, Lazar, this is like the third call that Lazar has had and been in the screening room and us not have time for. And it's killing me because every single time they've called in, the topic is so delicious. And so I'm
Sounds good.
Lazar.
Sounds interesting.
Please call in sooner. That way we can get to your calls. But I don't have terribly long for the after show, so I want to make sure that we wrap up because I want to at least have a little bit of time to hang out with people in the after show. But Elliot, thank you. It's so much better when you're here.
Brother, I appreciate you, indulging me and letting us go, kind of wherever the hell we went. I think we had a really good discussion and showed that even though there are some nuanced disagreements between us, right, we can still work together for positive change in the world. I think that's always fucking valuable.
I agree, and if we're gonna wrap up this topic, I think I've become more radicalized over the course of this conversation than I was when we started, and that's okay.
Yeah. That might though be a point for your side about what you were saying earlier about me following the person in the discussion. That might be a point on your side there, man. So I don't know. People are gonna have to tell us in the comments and just call back in next month. I mean, because I'll be here every second Sunday. So
agreed. And also when I if I have the extra space, I love giving you a call. You're on and off air. You're just good people. So I think you're going to be on other shows in the next week, though. Do you want to plug those before we go?
That is a good question. Hang on. Let me grab a thing here.
In the meantime, while you do that, I will read the super chats and plug all of that information. I read the super chats at the end of every episode, and I sincerely appreciate it. Flaming Skeptic sent $5. Thank you, Flaming Skeptic. Says, "Hey Eric, we met at the last Faithless Forum. Just wanted to say hi." Hey, thank you for finding me, and thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Rogue Lesser sent $4.99. Says, "You are correct, Eric. I agreed. It's more than just this issue. I didn't consider that before commenting. Trans rights are human rights." Damn it, I missed the context, and that's killing me. I'm going to need to read back and contextualize that. Thank you, Rogue Lesser. My Unfinished Journey sent $6.66 and says, "Hail Neo, hail Eric and SR, and hail people fighting for their own rights." Thank you, My Unfinished Journey. And My Unfinished Sock sent $2 and says, "Don't suppress a revolution. Like and share instead." I love that. I love that so much. While you pull that up, I do want to say, I know that I've said this before, but if you like the show, consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell to be notified when new content and live shows are posted and ready to go. And if you want to support the show, every little bit really does help. This is a true, honest bootstrap, project. There's no larger organization helping this. And so going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration will help ensure that this can continue. Again, that's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. And where can people find you other than on this show?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go out there and you type in secular rarity, you'll see a cute little thought bubble. That's probably me. But the next cool things that I've got coming up, So next week I'll be on the Atheist Experience again. And then just 2 days after that, you guys, Tuesday the 28th of this month, if you somehow can find a way to tune in to 90.3, the local Nashville public radio station, from 12 noon to 1 p.m., you will hear me talking live on one of their shows about some of the cool work that we do in the Nashville area, bringing atheists, Christians, non-believers, and religious folks of all sort together to have discussions. So I don't know how the hell you would tune into that if you're not in the Nashville area. I genuinely don't
If you
know.
happen to be there, yeah.
If you can figure that out, then you'll hear me then. So I'm excited.
I love it. I love it. Elliot, as always, thank you so much. I really liked the way we signed off last week. Do you remember how we did it?
You have to remind me. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No worries. So I say thank you for watching. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Secular Rarity.
This is Skeptic Generation. And we're glad we had this talk.
We're glad we had this talk.
Bye, everybody.